let's take a look at how we can go and add in variables. Now, variables are a very important concept in programming, regardless of the language. Now, variables are like little boxes you can put pieces of data into. So think of a variable as one box, and you can put one piece of data. You can put a number or you can put a character. Okay? But what you cannot do is put in numbers and characters into one box here. So what does that really mean? Well, first of all, let's declare a variable. So we'll say variable is equal to, or we'll say variable number. And in order to declare a variable, we have variable number, and we'll make that equal to 2. Okay? So right now, if you have variable number, this is what is known as a declaration. And if you make it equal to 2, it's known as an initialization. So we got variable number, which is the name, and we'll make it equal to 2. We can make it equal to minus 123.456 if you really wanted to. You need the semicolon at the end, but you want to make sure that you do add in something here. It doesn't really matter what it is. Let's call it 23 for the moment here. So we got variable number. Okay, so that's 23. And every time we add in variable number, we can go and it'll equal 23. So watch this here. If I type in variable number, we go to output here, and we run it here, you can see that it changed it to 23. Now if I change this to, let's say, 55, and we run that here, well, look at that. It changes to 55. Pretty basic stuff. So this is a number variable. Now, in JavaScript, you can mash variable numbers accordingly. So for instance, in other programming languages, there is something known as a float, which is, something like, which will have decimals here. And then there's another one called integers, and those are only positive or negative whole numbers. In JavaScript, you can technically have these floats and ints, but you can mix them, whereas in other languages you can't do this. So if you were, in a different language, you couldn't add float to int, otherwise it won't work. But in JavaScript you can do that. Let's take a look at another variable type here. So we'll call this variable string, and that's going to be like this here. So variable string is equal to this here. Now this is a string variable. It's full of characters. So if I go variable string, for instance, and maybe we'll change it to something else like awesome, like that. All right, if we run with JS and take a look at that, it says awesome. Pretty good. And that makes sense here. Now watch what happens when I go variable string plus variable number. Watch what happens here. Okay. So if I run with JS, and you can see it says awesome 55. Now notice how there isn't a space here. And if I add in a space now, so for example, if I add in a space, you can clearly see that there's a space here, and I run it here, you can now see that there is a space here. Okay? Now watch what happens when I added 2 spaces. Okay? 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There's still only 1 space there. So that's something to take note of, that there's something within the back end of JavaScript that's preventing you from adding in more spaces if you want. Okay? So what this is saying, and this may not seem very important to you at all, but what we've done here is we've added a variable, a string, and a number together. So what they've done is they've essentially just printed it. Okay? Now if I wanted to add, for example, if I said variable number is equal to variable number plus 10, this line is going to add 10 to whatever the variable number is. Okay, and you see it's 65 because whatever the base here is, so let's say it's 33, you can see that it's now 43 because we've added 10 to that. Okay, And what you've also seen here is watch what happens if I type in variable string. Okay, let's watch this here. You see it just kind of adds it on here. So JavaScript is very forgiving when it comes to data types. If you're in a different language, you would not be able to do that. You wouldn't just be able to add strings and numbers together. In a lot of other programming languages, you can't even add integers and decimal numbers together. But in JavaScript, you are allowed to do that.